What's up, everybody? Yeah, it's time to cut the bullshit, guys. Time to cut the bullshit. City of Wayne is in deep, deep trouble. And it's a real shame, right? I mean, it's a real shame. It didn't have to be that way. But, I mean, the City of Wayne clearly has not learned their lesson. And they're doubling down on their stupidity once again, which, what else is new, right? But this time, I think they've shown their hand to such an extent, and they've painted a picture, so they think. But really, all they've done is show their maliciousness on the record. And now it's time to make every separate issue its own lawsuit, right? I mean, this is the first thing I noticed about the City of Wayne when I moved here. You know, I closed on my house February 28th, March 1st. And within 4 weeks, my life was forever changed. On March 28, 2024, the City of Wayne, Michigan broke into my house for the first time, right? And they destroyed the sanctity of my household forever. The sanctity of my life forever. On March 28th, a group of firemen broke into my curtilage to enforce a policy that's not codified and is not enacted into law. Despite that, they continued into my property and gathered in my curtilage, my backyard, and invaded my privacy, threatened me, creeped me out, harassed me to abate a smoldering log, one log that I guess had not fully extinguished, right? So I bought this house. The fire pit was there. Here's a certificate of occupancy to prove it. Right, so the certificate of occupancy proves that the city knows about my property, knows what's in it, knows what's on it, and fire pit was approved with the house. When I bought the house, it had a giant pile of firewood. And it took many, many months to burn it all. There was so much of it that it was truly mind-blowing. Well, one smoldering log, one smoldering day. Hey, how you doing? Cat 73. One smoldering log changed my life forever. And even though me and the fire department did not have an interaction that day, I chose not to answer the door. It was very interesting to see how casually the City of Wayne breaks their 14th and 4th Amendments. And they do it without any shame whatsoever. You know, they will break into your house multiple times without a warrant to enforce a policy, an internal memorandum, a phantom ordinance, void for vagueness phantom ordinance. They'll enforce that. That's not even codified or enacted. And they'll use that to destroy your life, charge you with obstructing, but not bond you over to the circuit court. Keep it at the local level. Charge you with interference, with obstruction. Next day, charge you with obscene phone calls because you dared to redress your grievances with your public officials. You dared to ask the person who gave the green light to break into your property multiple times, 4 times total. 4 times total. And you're treated as someone who's guilty. You did something. You obstructed. And then, I tried to reach out to redress my grievances with this green lighted this. And then they charged me with obscene phone calls too. So I got arrested on May 9th, got put in the back of a cop car. And then I got arrested on May 10th. But I didn't even know I got arrested. I got arrested without even knowing it. So they arrested me again, never even notified me, right? You would think like, man, okay, you're falsely arrested, you don't even know it. Well, that's a new one. At least for me it is. So here you are, charged with 2 crimes. Two crimes. And all you did was exist in your backyard. All you did was use the property the way you bought it. And vilified, amplified for just existing and trying to clear out a spot in my yard so I can put a pond, an a pond for my vocational rehabilitation goals, my federally funded vocational training. Just unbelievable. I mean, it was just really, truly the amount of ADA, FHA, and civil right, disability, the violations, I mean, just staggering. And they did it March 28th of 2024. And then 14 months later, or roughly 13 or so, May 9th, 2025, I'm existing in my backyard and, I'm charged with interference, with obstruction. But my case isn't bound over to Wayne Circuit Court for some reason, oddly enough. And instead, I have 2 charges. I have an arraignment on June 3rd. And the day before the arraignment, June 2nd, that's when the city decided to bring charges. So I got arrested without even being charged until 3 weeks after the arrest that I didn't know about, right? So try to wrap your mind around this shit, guys. It's like, interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. And so here you are, waiting to go to your arraignment, and no issues, no charges, no new charges that I can recall. I'm probably wrong. They probably did charge me with something else before, but the only thing I knew of is on my birthday, on June 12th, the city decided to try to charge me with disorderly conduct at Smiles here on Michigan Avenue. And me and a new manager had a disagreement about a product, and things got heated a little bit. We talked some shit back and forth for a few minutes, and then I left. And the police did get called. The police showed up, and the business profusely stated that they do not want to press charges, that they don't consider it a criminal matter. Once management did their investigation, they gave me money to come back, and they said, we don't consider it a criminal matter. We're friends, and it wasn't a criminal matter. People yelling at each other, that's what men do sometimes, right? And so Joyology, or Smiles rather, didn't want to pursue charges. But do you think that stopped the city of Wayne? No. They were calling assistant manager's personal phone number and begging him, please press charges. And he won't. He said, no, I'm good. I don't, he found it. He made a comment to me in person that he found it strange at the level of persistence that the city of Wayne the officer Elzabadi engaged in. He said people were calling him nonstop, and just it was unreal, So that made him back out even more. So then the city charged me. I think the next day they said I drove by the mayor's house. He lives on a shitty part of town. I don't tend to go over there too much. I don't live in the ghetto like he does. And I apparently yelled fuck out of a car while I was driving past his house in a silver SUV. Never owned an SUV in my life, don't drive SUVs, but I have a Corolla, I have a Camry, but apparently those are SUVs, or I was driving an SUV, right? This was the accusation, and I yelled the word fuck out the window, and I guess that was enough to get a conditional bond violation. So that was interesting. Of course, they disposed of that charge, and they disposed of the disorderly conduct, at the dispensary. But they tried to say to me, or they tried to insinuate on the record that, well, man, we had them dead to rights, and then they just didn't want to pursue it. And it's like, well, no, that's not what happened. What happened was, once they understood, well, why are they coming after you so hard? You're such a nice guy. We have no issue with you. We've never had an issue with you. You tip our bud tenders. You're good to us. We all know you by your first name. Why are these people coming after you so hard? And once I showed them and explained to them, the fire pit and everything, then they said, oh, wow, okay, I understand now. So thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. It is a beautiful home. And that's another reason why, like I said, the city is just, they're jealous, they know that, let's just be honest with them, right? They know people are onto them. They know people are watching them. They can't hide it. I mean, their whole strategy is to just go do these city council meetings and just say nothing and hear nothing and know nothing and then leave, right? And there's no civic discourse. They say, oh, we're not even going to talk, because these people are idiots. These people are fucking the most idiotic people I've ever met. The most idiotic and unreasonable people that I've ever met in my life governs the city of Wayne, Michigan. I've never met such reprehensible people. And I say that, man, because it seems like every interaction I've ever had with them, I mean, from getting my deck permit, almost causing my deck to fall down because they didn't check things and there is no inspections, and the shit's a joke. It's all a cash grab. It's fraud is what it is. That's what the city of Wayne, Michigan is fraud. The city of Wayne, Michigan, I paid for 2 deck inspections, clearly didn't get them, and then the inspector just shrugs his shoulders and says, oh, my bad. And I'm like, yeah, my bad. Ledger board almost detached from the house. Deck would have collapsed. That would have been great. Great time, I'm sure, whoever would have been under that. So, inexcusable shit, right? They didn't do an inspection or don't train their inspectors, one of the two or both. But yeah, they're claiming that, I don't know. These people are scum, dude. I mean, May 19th was the day, though. May 19th. So I want to talk about May 19th. But let me get to that. But before I do, so June 12th, June 13th, driving by the house, yell fuck. Disposed. So then the next charge was June 22nd, where apparently I harassed the fire department's secretary because I called, right? So, it's kind of like malicious compliance, right? Or I wouldn't even say that. I would just say what Rush Limbaugh used to say. Sometimes you have to act absurd to illustrate the absurdity. And really, I didn't act absurd that day. I literally just called the fire department and said, hey, I'm going to be burning today, because I know you guys don't have an actual burn permit process. So the fire chief's already said that to me. So I said, I'm going to be burning today. I just wanted to preemptively call you and let you know this is what I'm going to be doing. This is, the hours in which I'm going to be doing it. And, whatever you guys need, you don't have to send no police to my house, though. I said, you don't have to waste public resources. So I'm going to let you know what I'm doing, because you have this void for vagueness policy. That's not an ordinance, but you're treating it like it's, the greatest piece of literature ever written, when really it's probably the most vague for voidness document I've ever read in my life. Void for vagueness document that I've ever read in my life. And I'm going to read my addendum. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to present it to you guys, so you guys can listen to the original open burn policy. This is how big of a spit in the face this policy was. I mean, completely capricious, completely, encouraged arbitrary enforcement, selective enforcement, over breadth, right? So just like all encompassing, we can do literally whatever we want. That's basically what it says. The most undefinable, garbagely written fucking shit in the history of this country, in my opinion, is the Wayne, Michigan open burn policy for controlled fires in the city of Wayne, whatever you want to call it, because they have different names for it. The open burn policy, city of Wayne controlled fires policy. We're just going to call it the open burn policy, right? But it has a different title. So that's like, I'm going to share that in my addendum. But it's just insane. It's absolutely, these people clearly are, I don't know what these people are. Incompetent, yes. Malicious and selective and retaliatory, yes. That's the Blackwell Noserini case. But this is like, has anything changed? No. Like he thought, oh, we just get rid of the city manager and problem solved. And I'm like, no. That's just the beginning. That's not even anything. Really, all the council, most of the council, the majority of the council, at least half of the council, some of the council has to go, right? Without a doubt. And then, of course, you're talking about some people that aren't even in the council that have to go. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of fucked up shit that's done in the city of Wayne. It's, in my opinion, one of the most corrupt cities in the state of Michigan. One of the most corrupt, certainly in Wayne County. But I'm going to say the United States. The city of Wayne, Michigan, at least for the last 10 years, dating back to about 2016, 2017, right? That's when shit kind of hit the fan for the city of Wayne. And there was a lot of shit that Lisa Noserini was involved with, and a lot of shit that she did, and a lot of mayhem that she caused. And it really put the spotlight on Wayne, and the cat's out of the bag, right? And then the Blackwell case happened, and then that was awful for him. And then they got smoked, right? Which, again, Blackwell cucked out in the end, right? So there's that. But he's like their buddy now, which, again, maybe he just had a bone to pick with Lisa Noserini. I don't know. But what they did to him was objectively fucked up, and it was stupid, and they got caught, and, they lost, and, it's an egg on their face. And then the Anthony Miller fiasco starts to occur, and, the city of Wayne's taking L after L after L. And then, of course, the John Zook Jr. execution, murder, June 24th of 2024, which that's what kind of got me really involved with the city of Wayne politically. It wasn't really until that case where I just was so disgusted by what I had, witnessed, what I had watched, that I said, yeah, these people are, and then the person who offed them is still working, and he's coming to my house and terrorizing me and shit. And you're just like, holy fuck, hell no. These people are dangerous. These people are idiots. That they, I don't know. The way they move, it's unbelievable how malicious it is. But they're not bright, There's a reason why they work for Wayne, unfortunately. So, the way I view Wayne is like it just needs to be annexed up into other surrounding municipalities. Westland really could take over any good part of it that it wanted to. Westland could take over parts. But really, I see Wayne as eventually being like Norwayne, where it's just going to be like, owned and operated by Westland, and there won't be any need for this, this corrupt garbage that doesn't serve any purpose other than itself. And yeah, there really is nothing good to say about the city of Wayne. It's in a good location. I think the majority of people that live here are good people. But yeah, the government, I mean, I've had I've had realtors, I've had all sorts of people that have lived in Wayne their entire life tell me that the city of Wayne is just out of control. It's one of the most out of control, lawlessness, I mean, is putting it mildly. The city of Wayne is just a lawless entity, self-serving entity. And it could be annexed into Westland. It could be annexed into Romulus. It could be, hell, even be annexed into Canton, although I don't think Canton would want anything to do with them. So your choices are Westland or Romulus. Those are your two choices. And I think between those two, the city of Wayne really, like I said, I don't see it as serving a purpose. I mean, it doesn't have any livelihood. Downtown is dead. It's really a sad place because it used to be a nice little town back in the 50s and 60s and probably even into the 70s. But it's been downhill for a long time. And yeah, these people that are in charge now are they're just idiots, right? Like, they want to have everything get secret, and they act like they're like the mob and shit, right? Everything's got to be a closed session, and people see right through that shit, and they look at what the city looks like downtown, and they look at just everything, and they're like, well, it's not the best, and the taxes here are extremely high, and you don't get really anything for your tax money besides more lawsuits and more stupidity. So, one has to beg the question at some point. You got to ask yourself, man, what's the purpose of this, right? I mean, what's the purpose of having this self-serving entity that really does nothing other than serve its own interest? It's really astonishing, right? I mean, you look at the independent workplace assessments, and you look at Abraham Hughes and what he went through, and they hired this police chief, Strong, right? And Strong is just he's a snake, man. He's a snake. He's a snake in the weeds, right? In the weeds. And the Blackwell case and the Anthony Miller case, and then John Zook Jr., that's when people started to realize, like, holy shit, these people are morally bankrupt, right? I mean, they are, holding some little, I mean, it's just the city of Wayne's a joke, man. They really are. They're a fucking joke. And they don't serve any legitimate purpose. I'll tell you that. And May 19th was when it really, like I said, May 19th is what I'm going to start with and what I'm going to end with. Because that's really the granddaddy of them all. May 19th was a day that I will never forget. Neither will my wife or my kids, and anyone who was there and witnessed anything that day. Dozen or so firemen in your backyard, broken into your house. No knock, no announcement, no nothing. Just here they are in your backyard. Broke into your curtilage, right? And what are they there for? They're there because they got a call, right? They got a call, and anonymous call. Who called? Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows nothing. Don't worry about it. You got a warrant? No, don't worry about it, right? These people, they're here for something big, right? They're lollygagging, lazily walking up to the fire pit, going 200 plus feet, breaking into my curtilage, 200 feet into my yard, and they don't have any qualms about it, right? They're just kind of like, it's no biggie, right? Like Fourth Amendment, 14th Amendment, those don't mean nothing, right? Those are optional in Wayne. And I'm like, interesting. So then you really make the argument, well, Fifth Amendment too, because I mean, essentially, with the way they're acting, they're treating my property basically as if it's private, like as if it's public property, and they can just come and seize it and do whatever they want, which they can't, right? Not constitutionally, that is. And so one of the officers puts his hands on me and assaults me that day. And it was just astonishing. It was just absolutely astonishing. He puts his hands on me. He initiates contact with me. He interferes with my movement on my own property. He's there to enforce an ordinance that doesn't exist. An ordinance, right? Not an ordinance. A policy that doesn't even exist. It's not codified, not enacted. And I'm just being stalked, threatened, harassed, terrorized, right? It's weird how these people project, right? All these unconditional bond conditions, right, that they were trying to impose and that they were imposing. Gag orders and 24-hour GPS home confinement 3 hours away from home, right? So forced homelessness, right, essentially. Forced homelessness while your wife's several months pregnant, right? And you have a 3-year-old autistic child, non-verbally autistic, and you're just like, you could make this shit up, guys, how evil and malicious this is. You really got to beg the question. You really got to beg the question as to, well, why do you need 24 cops, 3 different departments? Why do you need 3 different departments out on my property without a warrant? Late at night. So you had all day to get a warrant. You had at least 10, 12 hours to get a warrant. You had days, you had weeks to get a warrant. Months. But instead you just broke into the curtilage to enforce a law that doesn't exist, huh? It's like interesting stuff. And then you charge me with interference, and then you charge me with another crime, but I don't know about it until the day of literally during the live arraignment, right? And you're like, wow, this is interesting. This is very perplexing. It's not really that complicated or hard to figure out, but you're like, so, disposed of charges, but May 19th, when that was over, the damage had been done at that point. The war had been waged. I mean, it was waged on May 9th. But yeah, May 19th, Westland has a police report, but the city of Wayne has no police report. 24 cops in your yard, but no police report. And you're like, wow, that's unprecedented. And the city that you requested to come out there, Westland, has a police report. Doesn't say anything other than Wayne asked us to assist them. And then Canton, we got to go down to Canton and get their police report. We got to do that and see what their police report says. But it's very peculiar case, I'll tell you that. And then what happens next? Well, they try to violate my bond several more times. They come back on my property on July 4th, terrorize my family. But this time they do it in the morning. And they, again, for the 4th time, this is break-in number 4, they break into my curtilage to extinguish a smoldering pile of wood because they got a call that I was burning chemicals and treated lumber, which of course, when they broke into the house, they found neither of which. Mind you, you can't see the backyard from the front yard or from the road or from anywhere because it sits in a wetland, right? So it's in a really low elevation down a ravine. And from the road, from the sidewalk, while you're driving by, you can't see back there. It's, 250 feet away or 250 yards away. So it's really 250 feet, excuse me. So it's really just unbelievable. Some complete bullshit, non-substantiated call, right? A tip, right? Gives them the full-fledged right to just send, dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen people blitz attacked, right, into your backyard, right? Like they're trying to make a political statement or something, right? And yeah, July 5th, that was another horrific day, and they did the same thing. Searched and seized the property without a warrant, seized the fire pit for the 4th time, and tried to charge me with another conditional bond violation, which has been disposed. So now we have 4 disposed charges, I believe it is, 4 or 5 disposed charges, and or bond violations or whatever, what have you. And you're just like, wow, okay, so it's really telling, because you're like, well, from May 9th, when everything got started, to July 5th, the city has admitted, disposed of all charges, every single one of them, every single bond violation, every single misdemeanor charge, right? Because they got me on July 5th. They said that I was threatening and intimidating or harassing. I was harassing and threatening the firemen and the police officers that were on my property, invading my land, because I was using some harsh language and I was using some inflammatory language, right? Triggered some PTSD, and I guess I was forced. I guess I was in the wrong. I was the one threatening them, even though they're violating the law. But I'm the bad guy, right? I'm the bad guy here. So it's wild stuff, guys. It's fucking wild stuff. And of course, that charge has been disposed of too. And then I can't remember if there's anything else. I'm sure there was probably 1 or 2 more things that ended up getting disposed of. But yeah, conditional bond violation. I mean, just like a waterfall, nonstop. And then July 10th, my attorney, who hadn't had really any contact with me, he was a paid attorney, and he didn't have really any contact with me between hearings. But we went to our first real hearing July 10th. I guess that was yeah, we need to. Me and you together, we definitely need to. But what is it? Let me turn this shit off. But yeah, July 10th, that's when it takes a turn. I go to court, and my attorney is, instead of stating for the record that this is not even just void for vagueness, which he never even argued that, he tried to say that we were in compliance with their ordinance. And I was like, dude, there is no ordinance, dude. And so he acted like that didn't exist, or he didn't hear me or something. So I knew something was really wrong. at that point with Mr. Warwick. I'm just going to say who he is, Mr. Warwick, Jermaine Warwick. Yeah, there was many things that were very worrisome about what he failed to do and how he acted, how he conducted himself. But yeah, I mean, when he was like pretending that this is an actual ordinance, and not only that, but basically trying to say that we're in compliance with it. And I'm like, no. You can't be in compliance with it, because no reasonable person of reasonable intelligence would know what the hell any of this means. You do this to 10 people, and 10 different people would have 10 different answers. It's confusing. It's circulatory. It doesn't make any sense. It's the most void for vagueness doctrine, which again, I'm going to print it off for you guys and read it to you. It is absolutely bananas. It's absolutely bananas how any judge, right? Brita O'Leary at the 29th District Court, it's bananas. May 9th is the bananas, because May 9th, the officers are trying to, they're talking amongst each other, right? How are we going to spin this? This charge is loose. This is their own verbiage. This is them speaking. And the arresting officer, he goes into his squad car and tries to look up the open burn ordinance. Because, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess they didn't know that they didn't have a codified ordinance, which, just like I said, just further illustrates their just incompetence. Or they just didn't give a fuck, right? And they were just going to use whatever they could to shut me up, or, fabricate charges against me, quite literally. And it's just it's horrifying, and I don't want another person to go through this, and that's why I got to withdraw the plea, because in good conscience, I mean, I took an oath to defend the Constitution of this country, and that oath never expired, and that oath will never expire. And in good conscience, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't, allow this to be heard in a jury trial, because this stuff is life-changing, what this has done to me and my family. And there was no probable cause for any of it. And for not only one judge, but two judges to say otherwise is really, I don't see another case like this. I mean, this is so fucking bananas. This is so, unbelievable. I mean, you look at the body camera footage on May 9th, and the officer's trying to look up the ordinance, and he can't find it because it doesn't exist, and then they're talking about the fact that it doesn't exist, and they're saying, fuck it, charge him anyways. Send it off to our city attorney, Carolyn Miller. Let her handle it. And then she apparently looks at all those body cameras and goes, yeah, there's probable cause here for interference, for obstructing, right? Oh yeah, there's a totally legit ordinance that we're enforcing here, right? Like, no, I mean, it's inexcusable. It's completely inexcusable. It's so unbecoming of a prosecutor. Prosecutorial misconduct to that is just unbelievable. I mean, vindictive, malicious prosecution, selective, retaliatory, class of one, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. It's absolutely appalling that is even possible in 2025 in this country. It's absolutely, yeah, well, yeah, that's the next step, right, is to delete me. So that's what they're going to do, and that's why I'm going to have to become Juan Pablo Duarte and, go into hiding. He was forced into hiding, just like I was forced into homelessness for just existing and owning a piece of property, and, having the courage and the civic responsibility to speak to the public at city council meetings and to give my opinion, right, on what I'm seeing, and to interview and ask questions, right? How dare me, right? How dare me exercise my First Amendment? And it's really just been a nightmare on Elm Street, And May 9th, the fact that two judges signed off on that, the fact that no attorney that I had argued it, the fact that the prosecutor, two prosecutors, found probable cause for May 9th, right? Which that's what got everything started. So if you take away what the police and the fire department and the city did on May 9th, if you take that away, nothing else happens, right? Because like I said, that charge has been disposed of. of course, if May 9th wouldn't have happened, May 10th wouldn't have happened, because there would have been no reason for me to look up who wrote this policy, this open burn policy, and to call them and try to ask questions and redress my grievances, right? And so, charged with another crime, Black versus Hill, because I dared to ask a question and try to redress my grievances and petition my government and, question my public official, right? So, obviously that would have never happened either, which means that none of the other shit that they said that I did, which then they disposed of because they had no evidence for them. And yeah, I mean, like I said, none of this would have happened, and I would have had 20 or 30 grand more money, and I wouldn't have been forced into homelessness and, having heart palpitations. I got a heart monitor now. First time in my life, never had heart palpitations a day in my life, and now I have to wear a heart monitor, right? And I have to push it when my heart's sputtering, because the stress of what this has done to me and my poor wife and my poor children. I mean, it's cruel and unusual punishment. This case is, first of all, it's retaliation against my First Amendment. It's because I spoke, right, that this occurred. But it wasn't either, because on March 28, 24, they didn't know who I was. I didn't know who they were. So, or at least I don't think they did. So, I don't know. I'm still trying to find the words to describe what it is, but I definitely know that it's a First Amendment. It's First Amendment violation, retaliation. And then it's a fourth, obviously, I mean, the biggest Fourth Amendment violation you can have 4 different times, right? I mean, really 5 different times if you include July 10th, where they came and arrested me because I guess I committed a bond violation by calling the police, because they said it wasn't an actual emergency, even though there's no legally definable term actual emergency. So that's just something that they completely made up, which again goes back to void for vagueness, right? The city of Wayne are masters at void for vagueness, skirting around it, the void for vagueness doctrine. And, I mean, it goes without saying for the Fourth Amendment. The 14th Amendment is, like I said, I think it's just as bad as the Fourth Amendment in this case, because the lack of procedural due process is just, I mean, it's astonishing, really. It's astonishing. And, to then be charged on May 10th, or on May 10th with the charge, but being charged with it and being arrested for it, but not even being notified that you're charged or arrested, right? So you're arrested on paper, but they don't let you know or tell you about it. And then they only decide to pick up the charge apparently the day before, right? So they're arresting me for something, but they don't talk to the supposed victim until the 13th. They don't talk to the fire chief until the 13th. But I've already been arrested and released apparently, and posted bail or bond without even knowing it. So that's interesting. And then of course the day of the arraignment, when I finally know about it, and then I actually try to ask, what crime is that? What crime did I commit? I'm being told by Judge Brita O'Leary in the 29th District Court that I'm going to be held in criminal contempt because I dared to ask, what crime did I commit? What crime is this? I'm not even aware of this crime. I don't even know what this is, and I'm not even aware that I apparently was arrested almost a month ago. On May 10th, I was arrested somehow, but I don't know. I was at home all day. The police, nobody came to my house, but somehow I guess I was in jail on paper. So the lack of due process, right, is just, like I said, astonishing. And then, of course, the lack of a speedy trial, right? The lack of a speedy trial, the lack of ability of me to be able to defend myself pro se, literally making that seemingly impossible for me to do so. And yeah, I mean, it's then of course the 8th Amendment, which I think this case is one of the worst cases of, is cruel and unusual punishment. Using void for vagueness bond conditions and a void for vagueness non-codified, non-enacted policy as your basis of enforcement. I mean, literally, this is a completely fabricated, I mean, made up out of thin air charge, right? Which then led to a cascade of attempted bond violation after attempted bond violation, charges that I didn't even know existed until like literally during a live arraignment, which is like, wow, that's pretty dirty stuff there. So, and then, you know, what is it? June 12th, June 11th, June 13th, bond violation, June 22nd or 23rd, another bond violation or two. And, you know, July 5th, of course, I'm charged with a bond violation again, because, you know, I'm not allowed to tell someone to, you know, fuck off, get off my property, while they're breaking into it. Interesting. So it, you know, then July 10th, they arrest me because I supposedly committed a bond violation, because they got to deem it retroactively, right? Because they get to deem it retroactively that it wasn't a actual emergency, right? Which, again, is void for vagueness, right? When I'm reading that, I'm thinking, okay, only call the police or fire department in good faith, right? And so, yeah, I have a city worker out in front of my house yelling obscenities, yelling that he's going to kill me, and yelling it in front of my wife, my infant child, and an old gentleman named Albert, who's one of my tenants. And you're like, wow, that's pretty horrifying, you know, blocking your driveway so you can't even leave your driveway. So now that's entrapment. It's really false imprisonment at that point, because you know you can't leave. And you know, you call it, the police get called and they don't want to show up, and when they finally do show up, they decide that you committed a bond violation, right? Because you called the police, and they deemed it without even willing to investigate it, right? Because they went out of their way to not investigate it. But yeah, they, you know, just get to make the rules undefinable and then enforce it retroactively, and then, you know, say that you violated a bond condition, which isn't a crime. And then, you know, try to charge you with disorderly conduct on private property that you own, which you can't, you know, there is no, the Michigan state statute requires a public element. So you can't legally be disorderly on private property. So that's just a catch-all bullshit. None of it meets the criteria. And so you're just like, okay, you're under arrest for a bond violation. Which one? Who knows? Who cares, I guess. And then you're having two officers, one on each arm, squeeze your arm, bum rush you, grab and squeeze your arm. Your hands are occupied. You have a cane in one hand, a cell phone in the other, and then they're squeezing and ripping and, you know, trying to put your hands, like, you know, it hurt. It fucking hurt. And not only that, but they're trying to push you towards your new car, trying to push you towards that, and slam you up against your new car, scratch that all the fuck up, because, you know, that's just what I want. So, no, I mean, I just backpedaled and tried to, you know, catch my balance, and I was trying to defend myself, because I knew what was coming was it wasn't going to be good. I knew that male officer had bad intentions, and boy, was I right. Because he bum rushed me and punched me in the side of my head with my back turned, with his handcuffs. He was using his handcuffs as brass knuckles, and he punched me on the right side of my face while my back was turned towards him. And of course, he had one of my wrists, and he was squeezing and pulling my wrist back. So I was totally defenseless. And he punched me as hard as he could with a makeshift weapon, and tackled me to the ground, and then put his elbow to my throat, put his elbow, you know, the other officer puts their elbow on my neck. They're putting their knees, driving their knees and slamming their knees into my lower back, and twisted me all up, picking me up by my shirt collar and choking me. And, you know, had the handcuffs so tight that I have permanent nerve damage in my left hand, my left thumb. Thank God it's not my right, but my left thumb has never been the same. My right hand's never been the same. Begged them to release the cuffs, which they pretended to after like 10, it seemed like forever, 20 minutes. But at that point, the damage was already done, you know, right? And so they were using them to torture me. That's why they're called torture cuffs. And yeah, I was tortured, cuffed up. I was punched in the face from behind, slammed to the ground, had elbows on my neck and my throat, and It's really excessive force, brutal force for, at most, was a bond violation, allegedly, so you say, right? So no due process to actually see if that's the case. No, we're just gonna escalate to level 10, right? Because, you know, stop resisting immediately, right? You don't even know what the fuck they just said. As soon as before they even finish their sentence, before they even tell you you're under arrest, they're running towards you screaming, stop resisting, like immediately. It's like that one scene off of Harold and Kumar when they're locked up in the jail and the black dude, like, you know, puts his hands up, puts his hands on the wall, and they're like, stop resisting. They're like beating his ass, and he's like totally complying. Yeah, that's what it's like. That's what they do to you, you know, because that apparently, you know, looks good for the camera, I guess. And then on top of it, while they have these torture cuffs on me, causing nerve damage to my wrist, well, then they charged me with assault and battery on a police officer because I dared to spit on my driveway one time. My mouth was all bloody and busted and all dry, and I you know, one little nothing came out, and it went straight on the concrete, or on the epoxy, and the police officer I supposedly spat on made zero reaction. Good thing my wife got it all on video, right? Because otherwise, it's, you know, it's their word against my words. So luckily, the video speaks for itself and shows clearly that one spat was onto the concrete and went straight past any officers. And yeah, it was just, like I said, assault and battery, right? So they're saying I made contact, right? Which, of course, there was no contact made. And, you know, I just, you know, spit straight down at the ground. And, you know, that's apparently assault and battery on a police officer, but it's not a felony, though. Any other person, they would have bounded over to the Wayne Circuit Court. But not me, right? I'm special, right? Lucky me. Yeah, lucky me. So they don't bound it over, right? Because then it's a felony, right? And, you know, they don't want Wayne Circuit Court to get involved, right? They don't want them to mess up their case, you know, their scam that they got going on. Their fucking persecution that they have going on. They don't want that to be interrupted. So it's just amazing. No, it's not amazing at all. It's horrific. It's fucking horrific. It's absolutely horrific. But yeah, that was July 10th. And then it was 2 months of house arrest, away from house, forced homelessness, 24-hour GPS tether, forced homelessness, somewhere, you know, exiled into Venezuela like Juan Pablo Duarte. And, you know, my wife over there, forcing my wife and my kid out of school, and my wife into forced homelessness as well, was just truly appalling by that judge. And of course, after Brita O'Leary recused herself without ever stating on the record as to why, apparently, but, you know, shouldn't have been any probable cause for May 9th, definitely not. I mean, there's no way in hell that any non-corrupt judge could look at, I mean, it's insane. I mean, there is no debate. There's no debate as far as, I mean, it's the most absurd lack of probable cause that I've ever seen. And yet, you know, here's a gag order, here's some punitive bond conditions, here's some more punitive bond conditions, here's some more, here's a remand, here's another remand, here's a remand, here's a remand, here's a remand, here's a remand. Nope, can't be out before trial because you filmed the ballot box, you talked about your case, another gag order, another this, another that. And I can't wait to just release all the transcripts so you guys can just see for yourself, right? Because the record's there, right? So the record is there, and I can't wait to let you guys have it all, and then you guys can compare it to the ROA and see everything that's not matching, and you'll say, "Wow!" You guys will than I can, and I will, and you know, I'm just glad that this video is going to be public record, because the truth needs to be said, and it needs to be said numerous times, and it needs to be said again and again and again, and more details and more details and more details. But yeah, I hope that has been somewhat informative. Yeah, after July 10th, the what came after that was just beyond a nightmare. Forced homelessness and 2 months of house arrest, 24-hour GPS tether. You can't even go to Walmart to get your kid diapers. Wife doesn't have a driver's license, so what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Catch 22. That's what they want. Void for vagueness. Bond conditions and punitive bond conditions that serve no purpose. They're definitely not there to ensure appearance, right? Because I have no failure to appears. And yeah, absolutely no basis for it. People versus Edmond. Dangerousness to the community cannot even be considered in a pretrial release decision, generally speaking, because these are simple petty ordinance misdemeanor violations. So it's just, like I said, it's traumatic. I thought the Army was traumatic, and it was, and my childhood was traumatic, but yeah, well, I'm definitely going to start live streaming. I couldn't before, I don't think, because they got my Facebook deleted. They claimed I falsely impersonated somebody or something, and they mass flagged it, got my Facebook deleted, so got my channels deleted. So yeah, I wasn't able to live stream, and yeah, I'm going to start doing that for sure. Everything will be live streamed because it's based on their antics, right? There's just simply no other way, right? Everything will be live streamed and it'll be posted, straight to video and be documented, so make sure you guys save it, because they flag my videos all the time, and they get them, censored, and they're private, no one else can see them, and yeah, make a private account they can't find just to stream on. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. We're gonna do that. Yeah, because we gotta I mean, the truth has to be set, and the record needs to be set, and the precedent needs to be set that no, the government, just like open fields, they can't just walk onto open fields without a warrant. Well, they sure as fuck can't enforce laws that don't exist and charge you with interfering with them, with their enforcement of something that doesn't exist. And warrantless break-ins of curtilage to enforce something that's, smoldering fire pits all 4 times too, which was just even more remarkable. It's a blessing from God. It's divine intervention, because I've had some fires back there, but every time they showed up, the fire was gone, and you're just like, wow. You couldn't make a story up like this. I mean, it's just the evidence. It's all on video. It's all there on good camera, iPhone camera quality, iPhone 16 Pro camera quality, and thank God, thank Jesus that it was, because all the incidences were recorded. So that's a very good thing. And we're gonna be posting the rest of those videos, any video discovery, all the discovery, everything that we can. Very soon we're gonna be posting everything, because the world needs to know. The world needs to know how I was done, and you've served over the max sentence, 90 days, and then they're going to keep you in jail another 2 or 3 months pre-trial until, so you're going to be double the maximum sentence, right? And I mean, it's just sick, cruel and unusual punishment on steroids. I mean, the most cruel, the most unusual punishment. Definitely, that defines my case. Cruel and unusual. And, a dozen bond revocation, remand, emergency remand hearings, emergency revocation hearings, right? Remand. And it's just wowzer, right? And then the gaslighting that both attorneys, all 3 attorneys tried to perpetrate in my brain, right? I mean, these people would just gaslight me and my family with no shame in their eyes, just casually, just gaslighting us anytime we'd ask any critical questions about, hey, why isn't this happening? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And yeah, you knew something was wrong, and I just wanted to be known, that there was a lot of things that both attorneys did that were highly questionable that got me and my wife to go, what the fuck? And everyone in my household to go, what the fuck? And, some things that were very questionable that just didn't seem to add up, and I don't think it takes a legal scholar to understand the void for vagueness doctrine. It's literally 2 sentences. So 2 concepts, very simple. And, yeah, so it's just, saying, was I disorderly on July 10th was I disorderly legally? No. I mean, July 10th, disorderly requires a public element, intoxication. No, that doesn't fit the statute at all. So, pleading no contest to that. If that's what the city wants to contend, that one can be disorderly on private property, and they can be forcibly, violently beaten and placed under arrest, false arrest, for allegedly violating a bond condition that was void for vagueness to begin with, because what the fuck's an actual emergency? There is no agreed upon definition, so that's just arbitrary enforcement. That's just a catch-all. Overbreadth, and it's fucking just, it's not surprising to me, but it is very surprising to see the maliciousness and vindictiveness, and to live it, to experience it. So pleading no contest to that is like, well, I guess, that's something I can live with. Was I being disorderly compared to normal? Yeah, I mean, I was, disorderly as far as, like, I guess my clothes, or my language was disorderly as far as, like, I was pissed, and I was, talking kind of loud, and but I do that sometimes. I have a right to do that. I'm deaf in one ear, or profound hearing loss, and I'm not deaf in either ear, but I got profound hearing loss in both ears. So sometimes I talk loud, I get excited, I bust a load, I bust a nut, so what? So definitely, based on the facts, I don't see, which again, that's what a judge and prosecutor should have enough integrity to know this, but two judges should, like, yeah, there's no probable cause there for that. That's clear as day. So we can, whatever. That's whatever. No contest to that. I mean, that's whatever. That's a 15-day maximum misdemeanor. But yeah, resisting arrest, I mean, clearly there was a struggle. There was resistance as far as, like, yeah, I was being falsely arrested and being attacked. So I was trying to resist losing my life or getting seriously injured, right? Of course. So, and obviously it, triggered a PTSD episode and disassociation, and that's disorderly, obviously. I mean, it's a disorderly thing. Disassociation, and a disabled combat veteran being beaten on his own property in front of his own family, in front of his own people, for something that didn't even exist, and for a bond conditions that void for vagueness and is attached to a open burn policy that never existed. So it's all fruit of the poisonous tree. This whole case is fruit of the poisonous tree. And I just have no, Welsh versus Wisconsin, Florida versus Jardines. I mean, there's so much case law that I could recite to you, which I think I will. I'm gonna recite that too when I do the void for vagueness addendum. I'm gonna do that as well. So I really thank you guys for your time. I'm gonna answer some of these questions. Yeah, make sure to copy the video in its entirety and send it to somebody for safekeeping. But so try to steal your phones. Yeah, they'll steal your phones. They stole my phone for over 6 months. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they, I don't have the video where he was cursing me out. No, I just have eyewitnesses. Mad Mike. Have you found a decent lawyer yet? Yeah, I've found some, but it's still a work in progress. Still a work in progress. I mean, now I can definitely get civil rights attorneys involved, but I really want to, in a perfect world, I would like to be able to get represented with competent criminal defense as well. But if I have to, if I have to go pro se, I'll definitely go pro se. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. I mean, it is an issue if they're gonna, lock me up and give me a pencil and no paper and no tablet. And yeah, that's a problem, right? Especially when your wife's 7 months pregnant, disabled, and, she's trying to take care of a 3-year-old disabled child. And it's like, wow, 7 months pregnant. And you're just like, holy shit, to put the, for the court, the judge to say, oh yeah, she can handle that. I mean, that's absurd. That's fucking just, like I said, a caregiver who's, someone who's caregiving a protected class is also a protected class. So disabled veterans and their caregivers are one and the same. So, it's all very telling, man. It's all very shocking, and it's all very perplexing, and it's all very wild stuff. It makes you beg the question, what the fuck is going on here? What's going on, and what could Mr. McFarland done that was so bad? Oh, he spoke out against his government. That's what he did. His local government. He spoke out against them. And he took them to war, and he declared war and said, hey, this is the hill I got to die on. This is the sword I got to fall on. Then let's do it. Sometimes you have to illustrate the absurdity. You have to go to the absurdity to illustrate the absurdity, right? Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, no pun intended, but hell, sometimes you got to do something wrong for the greater good, right? Which, again, I did nothing legally wrong. I mean, one can say, oh yeah, you were disorderly that day on July 10th. I mean, it wasn't my best moment, let's say, but definitely don't think legally I did anything wrong. So that leaves with resisting arrest, which, again, I was trying to resist the false arrest. So, I'll plead no contest to, obviously, the evidence, the video evidence speaks for itself. Fuck the police reports. Those are a joke. Those are complete fiction. Anything the police say is complete fiction because they're, on video. Oh, how are we going to spin this? This charge is loose, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it's pretty shocking shit. It's not shocking, unfortunately, with everything that I know, with the history of Wayne that I've been able to uncover so far. But yeah, people in this community will tell you how corrupt it is, and it's been like this for a minute, at least for the last, I would say, 10 years or so, probably longer. I haven't went back that far. I'm scared to keep going back. But I've seen other cases from the city of Wayne. They weren't good. But it's the same old pattern, the same old song and dance, the same old treatment, the Blackwell treatment. So, well, now it's going to be the McFarland treatment, because the McFarland treatment was far, far worse than the Blackwell treatment. The Blackwell treatment was training wheels. The McFarland treatment was a full-fledged drone, carpet bombing, ground invasion. I mean, just a Kafka-esque amount of shit just rained down on my household, my life. And it's all fruit of the poisonous tree, and it's all void for vagueness. And I just can't in good conscience not take this plea back, and not have this heard in front of a trier of facts and get this on permanent record. And hopefully it'll continue after the jury trial and go to another jury trial or to the Michigan Supreme Court, and this case can get studied, because I really, there's all those elements there: 1st, 4th, 14th, 6th, 8th, and I would even say 5th. So a lot of violations committed by the city, and that's just what I can remember. I don't have anything in front of me, no paperwork, no notes, but this is just off the top of my head. So this video's got pretty long, and you know, I need to keep this short for the record, but, you know, this is basically, hope I answered some of your questions. I'm sure you'll have more, and I'll gladly answer them to the best of my ability. But I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you a lot. I hope you have a blessed one. And thanks for the support.